Hi, my name is Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this short video I'm going to address a few questions I've been asked from people about photo business, about being a photographer, being a professional photographer, running your own photography business. Now, I've produced lots of videos that look at aspects of photography business, but these are some specific questions I've been asked that hopefully will be of some interest and maybe give you some thought if you're thinking, ooh, I could be a photographer, because the answer is probably yes, you could. So first one is, I'm an amateur, what do I need to learn to become a professional? Well, in terms of photography skills, which most people, when they ask me this question, they're almost always thinking in terms of photography skills. Probably, if you're a halfway competent photographer, then nowhere near the amount that you think you might need to learn. It's probably you have many of the photography skills, and you may well have the kit that's needed for it. To be a professional photographer, all you really need to know is, what do clients need? What do they want? How can your skills, your products, oh, and you do have to think of your photos as products, what can they bring to clients? Clients have needs, you address those needs with your product. It's as simple as that. It's a business skill, and that's probably, if you're an amateur photographer, so what you need to learn to become a professional photographer, you need an appreciation of the business side of photography. Now, I've done quite a lot of things about different aspects of photography business, about whether it's worth joining professional organisations or not. For some people maybe, for an awful lot of others no. They're a relic. They have no relevance to many professional photographers. But that's not always true. You need to do your research and find out what they genuinely offer and whether it matters to you. Now, an example about knowing your potential market, and this is key for anyone setting up a small business. Now, I've tested a lot of printers of late, and I get a lot of questions saying to people, I want to print greetings cards. That's great, and I want to sell greetings cards. That's also great. Do you have the slightest idea whether anyone wants to buy your greetings cards? Because this is, some of your photography, for example, or your artwork. Similar problem for photography. If you can't produce something that somebody wants, then it's a hobby. If you can produce something that somebody wants, they will pay for, but they won't pay much for, you've got a not very profitable business. And the business skill is to realise that you need to make a profit. There's lots more to it than that, but when it comes down to it, if your business doesn't make money and make a profit, that's not turnover, that's profit, then what are you doing it for? It's a paid hobby. That's why I often say to people, don't give up the day job until you've actually worked this out in a fair bit of detail and realise that there is a sustainable market. Because just because somebody has come up to you and says, whoa, your photos are great, my reaction to that is always, well, that's nice, thank you. My second reaction is, what does this person know about photos? Do they buy photos? Do they have anything connected with this? If not, then accept the compliment for what it is. If, however, they work for a company that regularly uses photography in its products, its marketing, then take a bit more notice of what they say. It may well be relevant. Just because that happens once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And here comes the problem, and this is a true story from years ago, and I mentioned this before, about some ne'er-do-well friends of mine lived in a house together, most of them unemployed, claiming benefits, etc., etc. One of them, with a little bit more spark, said, we live near a wealthy neighbourhood, we should make some bread, freshly baked, homemade bread, go out and sell it door to door. So they made some loaves, they went out, they nicked another friend of mine's bike temporarily that had a big sort of rack on the front of it so they could put it on and wheel the stuff about. And I believe they sold 5 or 6 loaves of bread, which is all they'd made. So they thought, great, this is superb. Off they went, pulled the various benefit checks, bought loads and loads of ready mixed baking sets for bread mixers. Not the individual ingredients, because they'd be cheaper, but no, we'll buy packs of ready mixed bread mix. And they spent all night making loads and loads of breads, and an absolute mess. And I know this because I know some other people who had the misfortune to live in the house at the time. An absolute mess they made out, and they produced masses of bread. And they went out the next morning. They went out with all this bread, and they sold 5 loaves again. So before you jump into this, make sure there's actually a market for the photography you want to do. Now, you can expand on things, you can diversify and stuff, but it comes back to it, if nobody wants to pay for your photography, your business isn't going anywhere. It's a paid hobby. Another question I'm often asked is, what courses should I do? Now, I'm happy to admit I've got loads of qualifications in previous careers, a couple of degrees, but I have not the slightest qualification in photography. It doesn't matter. I have business experience, business knowledge, and I have technical photography knowledge, and I can take decent photos. Well, at least enough people that matters have told me that, and I'm beginning to believe them. That's one other thing. Always be wary of that bit about thinking your picture's not good enough. Find people you trust, ask them, get them to give you feedback. It does help, because there's always a sort of feeling that, well, anyone could do this. Well, if you're any good, no, that's not true. That's what you're selling. You're selling your services to produce photos that are useful for people that they can't go out and do themselves. Some people will always look at a picture and go, yeah, I could do that. I could do that on my phone. Now, I'm going to suggest quite often they couldn't, and they'll quickly find out if they try it that they couldn't actually do it. But what about courses for doing it? Find stuff that is relevant to what you want to do in terms of a business. There are lots of these. I'm always very wary of ones that goes, our 27-step course will see you setting up a successful photography business. Photography business in a box. This is how to do it. Well, I'm sure it may well have worked. Certainly working for the people who are selling the courses. Well, one would hope so. But are they any good? All of these courses, whether they're on YouTube, whether they're personal ones, whether they're lectures, whether they're all kinds of stuff, find out how many people have done them, find out how many people have set up businesses, and the real thing, and I suspect many of these people running these photography school courses won't tell you, how many of those people who set up businesses are still running the business after a year, 2 years, something like that. You want to see whether this stuff is useful to you, and it needs to be something that you want to do. I could not set up a portrait photography studio, for example, because I have almost zero interest in photographing people, making prints of people, and dealing with people. And if you add kids to the mix, I have less than zero mix of interest in taking such photos. So obviously that's not a thing for me, but whatever works for you, make sure, however, once again, that it's something that's going to make a profit, because your products need selling and your products need customers. Another question I'm asked is, what camera do I need? Well, one that takes decent photos. It's a bit of a nonsense I hear sometimes. Oh, a good photographer could produce good photos on any equipment. Yeah, that never quite sounds right to me. Yes, I can produce good photos on any equipment. Whether those photos will meet my requirements as a professional photographer is another matter altogether. This particular picture was taken for a client, is using shifted and stitched images using tilt shift lens. Yes, I could do this in Photoshop with wide angle and various other things like that. Yes, I could do that, but really this is one of those photos where the equipment makes a real difference. But such equipment may not be relevant for the sort of business you want. So the likes of the 17mm tilt shift lens that I used, I believe, to take this one here, I would think is unlikely to be a great deal of use, given how expensive it is, for a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer. It's about needing what you need to produce the pictures you need. Similarly with lighting equipment, studio equipment and things like that. Now, studio equipment, basic studio, is a lot cheaper these days. eBay can be your friend. But at a certain point, if your business takes off, well, buy some better quality kit. But don't rush out and buy the high quality kit right to start with. It may be of no use to you. Make sure that you buy new kit when you need it and for use. And for the technology side of it, I always make a point of trying to understand the technology, because that gives me an edge, because most of the time I can forget about it, but every so often truly understanding the technology I'm using just gives me that edge in getting a better picture. And that better picture is a better product, and that better product works for the business. So it comes down to that. Yes, I enjoy taking photos as well. I wouldn't do this otherwise, but it always comes down to it has to be something about making some money from it. Because what's the difference between a photographer, professional photographer, and a 15-inch pizza? A 15-inch pizza will feed a family of 4. Now, I was lucky when I took up photography professionally. My previous career had bought me a house, and I didn't have any kids and nobody to support. That meant it was my risk. If you've got a family to look after, to contribute to, then be a bit more careful into looking at the business side of things and being sure that it's really worthwhile for yourself. I'm very lucky. I had the opportunity to become a professional photographer, and I took it. I was prepared for it to fail after a couple of years. It didn't. I'm still doing it, and that was in 2003. We're now in 2021, and yeah, work has been very thin over the last year, but I'm still glad I made the choice. So there you go. A few more things on it. Here's one that I have been asked, and it chimed with me because it was a question I thought about when I first thought about becoming a photographer. The question is, I want to be a landscape photographer, what can I do? Well, yeah, I would like to go around, spend more time taking photos of landscapes. But where's the money? And somebody I spoke to before I actually took up photography, I was talking to them about this, and they said, yeah, great, take your landscape photography, take your photographs, do your black and white stuff, because getting paid for it is not easy. I won't say they put me off it, but they pointed out that I actually really needed other areas of specialism, hence architecture and the likes. So I'm unlikely to get many people to ask me to go around and photograph the great English cathedrals. That's my hobby. I love this. In black and white, I like such stuff. Yes, it contributes to showing some of my technical skills. People like the pictures. I've sold a few prints, but it's really not a significant part of the business. This is stuff connected with the printing and things as well that actually I enjoy and helps me advance the business as a general business. It's not what we would call a profit centre for the business. And yeah, I hate that term, but it's a realistic one. You have to look at your business as a business. So look at what you can do. If you want to interested in landscape photography, look at well-known landscape photographers. What do they do? What else do they do as well as go and take pictures, sell pictures of landscapes? You'll probably find they do an awful lot more. Amongst the things that I do as part of Northlight is I teach commercial photography to companies, usually small businesses, but there has been some quite large businesses as well who want to set up their own product photography studios for doing stuff for themselves. Now, there's all kinds of reasons why they would want to do that rather than farming the work out, and I happily go around and teach businesses to do their own product photography, to get them started, to give them advice on how to do it. It's a bespoke service, and like many things during the pandemic, it's rather suffered because it's a personal, one-to-one or two or three people, see. So it's been difficult. But it's stuff like that that contributes a big time to the business. And one of the things is, if you've taught people product photography and they come across a tricky technical problem, who are they likely to ask to do some photography for them? Who are they likely to recommend to do some photography, maybe to someone else? It's you and your business. So I've got, for example, I do very bespoke teaching on using tilt and shift lenses. Now, I've written a book on tilt and shift lenses. That's partly because I'm interested in it, but it's partly the business, because tilt shift lenses are a significant part of my photography business. In fact, this particular one here was taken, it's based on a photograph from 1905 by F.H. Evans, very famous architectural picture at Wells Cathedral, and it's some steps, and that is my version of it taken with a 17mm tilt shift lens. That I did because I enjoyed it, but also because I was learning how to use the lens. That is part of the business as well. So all of this stuff here, the YouTube stuff, I do not expect people who watch my YouTube videos, the business side, to rush out and go, we need to hire Keith to do some photography. It's not that. It's a general building your credibility as a business, and it comes down to that. But anyway, hopefully some of these things will have resonated with people who are thinking about becoming a photographer, or are photographers and wondering where their business is going, what to do with it. Do have a look at some of the other videos. There's an entire section of a playlist for videos about the business side of things. It's something that I get asked an awful lot. Please feel free to ask questions, because often it's the Christians that give me ideas for videos like this. So I hope that's been of help, and thank you very much. Oh, and please do subscribe to the channel.